This photo was taken at the March on Washington, that occurred in 1963. There's Martin Luther King Jr. Looks like there's a very large crowd. A question I would have: what would be the main reason for the March on Washington? And who started the March on Washington? Was it a large group that came together, decided to have the march, or was it just a large group, a small group? Was there one person who kind of gathered all these people together and said, I want to have a march to support the Civil Rights Act and Civil Rights Movement and to stand against racism and segregation, which was a huge deal back then. Another question I have: who was the president during the March on Washington? I think that'd be important to note. And like, what were his ideas on the March on Washington? Did he attend? What were his thoughts? Was he protected during this? Was he in the White House, or was he there with his Secret Service? Were there protests or riots that occurred before the March on Washington that were less peaceful than it looks like the March on Washington was? Were there any maybe that occurred after, because of the March on Washington, that people that disagreed with what happened at the March on Washington? When did the March on Washington occur? How long did it last for? Was it more than one day? Was it a few hours? Was it an all-day event? This was part of the Civil Rights Movement, and it did help pass the Civil Rights Act movement in 1964. How long was it after the March on Washington that the Civil Rights Act was passed? That would be a question I would have to look and research. As you can see in the photo, there's Martin Luther King Jr. He looks like he's sitting on a higher platform. This may have been for his safety, maybe away from the crowd, because of some of the topics that he talked about, and some people did not like Martin Luther King Jr. It does look like the crowd is made up of mostly African Americans. I see that some of them are holding signs, and one of them has a banner towards the back near the trees, and it does look like there are hundreds of thousands of people there. I would maybe even think millions of people. It does look like there may be some men towards the bottom in white hats that may have been security that look like they're in front of the crowd, but other than that, I don't see any officers unless they were mixing with the crowd or they were not in the photo when it was taken. Even though I also don't see them in the photo, was the March on Washington broadcasted on news channels so people could see the event and what was happening on that day, and so we can even go back and watch it maybe to see what happened at the March on Washington. I wonder how long this was before Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. He was Martin Luther King Jr. There are some people that did not like him and what he stood for. The March on Washington was where he gave his I Have a Dream speech that we've all come to know. And Martin Luther King Jr. Was famous. He has his own holiday, national holiday that many people get off of school for. I think that's important to note that he was such an important historical figure. And in the back of the photo, I see the Washington Monument, which I would assume that because of that, that's why it has the name, the March on Washington.